What if everything you're chasing is actually running away because you're chasing it too hard? What if the love, success, peace, and clarity you want are just waiting for you to stop holding on so tightly? Let's be real. Most of us have been taught that the more control we have, the safer we'll be. But what if that belief is the very thing that's keeping us stuck? We grow up believing that control equals safety. We think if we can manage every detail of our day, how others act, and how life unfolds, then we'll finally feel calm, successful, and secure. But here's the truth. Trying to control everything is often what blocks the very things we want most. Think about it. How many times have you forced something to happen? You push yourself to work when your body's clearly asking for rest. You try to keep a relationship going, even when it's lost its flow. You chase a version of success that deep down doesn't even feel right to you. We cling, we grip, and we micromanage. But nothing falls into place. Life starts feeling like a test you keep failing, even though you're trying your best. But something powerful shifts when you stop trying to force life to fit your schedule. When you stop holding on so tight, life can finally breathe. And when life breathes, it moves. It brings the right people into your path. It clears away the blocks you couldn't remove on your own. It hands you the answers you didn't even know you needed. There's a quiet but brilliant force always working in the background. Call it God, the universe, life energy, whatever fits your beliefs. This force doesn't respond to your control. It responds to your energy. And when your energy says, "I trust," life shows you why that trust matters. Nobody really teaches us this. Most people teach fear through control. But the truth is, control is fear in disguise. Trust is freedom. And freedom is the space where things finally begin to align. The moment you loosen your grip, you realize how much of your life you are trying to control. Your healing, your timeline, your relationships, your definition of success. You thought if you didn't control it, it would fall apart. But in reality, that control wasn't peace. It was just pressure. Pressure dressed up as productivity. Let me ask you something. Have you ever fully let go of something, and then out of nowhere, something better came along? That job you thought you had to chase, that person you kept trying to change, that dream you pushed because you thought it made you worthy. The moment you stopped forcing, life said, "Finally, I can show you what I had planned all along." Here's the secret most people miss. Control narrows your vision. It makes you focus only on what you think is possible. But when you let go of the how and the when, you make room for surprise. And surprise is often where your greatest breakthroughs live. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means, I've done my part. Now I'll let life do its part. You still take action, but from clarity, not control. You trust that what's meant for you is on its way, and your job is to stay open enough to receive it. Once you start living this way, something inside you shifts. You don't walk around begging life to cooperate. You stand calmly, knowing life already is. The universe doesn't follow your timeline. It doesn't care about your to-do list. It responds to your state, not your schedule. That's why the less you force things into place, the more they start to fall into place on their own. The truth is, we don't actually want control. We want certainty. We want to know things will work out. We want to feel safe. But control is just the illusion we use to avoid the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing. And the more we chase certainty, the more anxious and unsettled we feel. How often has control actually made things worse? You overthink a message, and it ends up sounding cold. You micromanage a team, and they lose motivation. You obsess over results and miss the progress that was already happening. But when you relax your grip, your energy softens. People feel safer around you. Ideas flow more freely. Even time feels like it stretches for you instead of running against you. Why? Because you're no longer fighting reality. You're observing it. You're participating instead of controlling. When you're in this mode, you see what you couldn't see before. You notice things that were always there, just hidden beneath the fog of anxiety. You hear the message behind the silence. You see the next step appear, not because you forced it, but because you made space for it. This isn't laziness. This is focus. This is you using your energy wisely. You protect your peace. You keep your curiosity alive. And most of all, you let life meet you halfway. We've been trained to believe that if we let go, everything will fall apart. That we'll lose the chance, the dream, the love. But when you release that grip, the world doesn't fall apart. You just stop trying. Most people don't even realize how much fear controls their daily life. Fear hides behind planning, organizing, and even hard work. It pretends to be a responsibility, but at its core, it's still fear. Fear that things won't work out unless we stay on top of everything. Fear that if we relax even a little, we'll fall behind. But what if the opposite is true? What if fear is the very thing keeping you stuck? Think about it. How many decisions have you made just to avoid discomfort? Saying yes when you wanted to say no. Staying silent to avoid conflict. Overcommitting because you didn't want to disappoint anyone. You weren't living with trust. You were living with tension. And when you operate from tension, everything becomes heavier. Even the things you love start to feel like a burden. But here's the thing. When you start replacing fear with trust, your whole life begins to feel different. You stop moving out of panic and start moving with purpose. You're no longer trying to keep up with everyone else. You're tuned into your own rhythm. You stop comparing. You stop rushing. You begin to understand that real progress doesn't need pressure. It needs presence. This is the quiet shift that changes everything. You start to notice the small ways you are holding yourself back, the way you second-guessed your ideas, the way you apologized for taking up space, the way you played small, not because you were weak, but because you were scared of what might happen if you truly showed up as yourself. But you don't need to be afraid anymore, because something beautiful happens when you stop living from fear. You get your power back. You realize that you don't need to control every detail to be safe. You just need to trust that you'll handle whatever comes. That's real confidence. It's not about knowing the future. It's about knowing your strength. And when you walk into life with that kind of energy, people feel it. They respond differently. Opportunities find you not because you chased them, but because you're aligned with them. You stopped operating from survival. You started operating from self-belief. That's the energy shift that opens doors. Let me say this clearly. You don't need to force your worth. You already have it. The job title, the relationship, the money, the status. None of it creates your value. You carry that within you, always have. And once you realize that, you stop chasing things just to feel good enough. You start creating from a place of wholeness. You become magnetic, not because you're trying, but because you're finally being real. You start saying what you mean. You start honoring your time. You set boundaries without guilt. You let go of people who don't support your growth. And suddenly, life begins to clear out everything that isn't aligned. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Sometimes we hold on to what's familiar just because it feels safe. But safe doesn't always mean right. Familiar doesn't always mean aligned. Sometimes, the very thing you're clinging to is the thing blocking your next breakthrough. Let go. Let go of the version of you that needed to control everything. Let go of the pressure to always have the answers. Let go of the idea that your path has to look like everyone else's. Your journey is unique. And the more you trust that, the more peace you'll feel, even in the unknown. See, we're not meant to know everything all the time. That's the beauty of life. It unfolds. It teaches us. It surprises us. And if we're too busy trying to control it, we miss the best parts. You weren't born to survive. You were born to flow, to create, to connect, to live fully, not fearfully. So stop shrinking to fit into spaces that weren't made for you. Stop overthinking your every move. Stop trying to predict the future before you've even lived the present. Because every time you loosen your grip, life moves with you. And that movement creates momentum. And that momentum creates miracles. Real miracles don't come from control. They come from alignment. And alignment starts when you say, I trust. We spend so much time trying to manage life like a checklist. We think, if I just do this right, follow this routine, and make no mistakes, everything will fall into place. But life doesn't move like a checklist. It moves like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes wild. And the more we try to control its flow, the more we get pulled under. Here's something people rarely admit. Most of us are tired. Not tired from working hard, but from trying too hard, trying to be perfect, trying to be liked, trying to meet invisible standards that keep shifting. We try to plan every step, fix every detail, and prevent every mistake. But deep down, what we really crave isn't perfection. It's peace. And peace doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from knowing you don't need to. Take a breath. Seriously, breathe in, breathe out. You don't need to chase every outcome. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to force things into place. What if you let life meet you where you are, instead of always trying to catch up to where you think you should be? Most of us weren't taught how to surrender. We were taught how to push, how to hustle, how to always be doing. But surrender isn't about giving up. It's about making space. It's about shifting from stress to strength, from force to flow. Think about this. Have you ever walked away from something, not because it failed, but because it no longer felt right? Maybe a job, a friendship, a habit? That quiet moment when you said, "This no longer fits me," and stepped away. That was strength. That was surrender. And that's the space where real growth begins. We don't talk enough about the power of letting go. We treat it like a last resort, when in truth it can be the first step to something better. Letting go of needing people to understand you. Letting go of needing validation. Letting go of the pressure to prove your worth through outcomes. Because here's the truth. You're already worthy. Before the success, before the approval, before everything clicks into place. Worthiness isn't earned, it's recognized. And once you recognize it, your whole energy changes. You start showing up differently. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop begging and start creating. And suddenly the things you used to force begin to find you. It's like this invisible shift happens when you stop controlling and start trusting. the world softens. People respond differently. You respond differently. It's not that challenges disappear. It's that you stop seeing them as signs of failure and start seeing them as part of the path. You begin to understand that things aren't always happening to you. They're happening for you. Even the hard stuff, even the delays, even the disappointments, they're not always the end of the road. Sometimes they're redirections. Sometimes the door closing is exactly what you needed to finally see the one that's been open this whole time. And that's the magic of surrender. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes you lighter, more open, more grounded, more connected to what actually matters. Letting go also means letting go of old stories, stories that say you're not enough, that say you have to earn love, that say success looks a certain way, that say rest is lazy and hustle is holy. You get to choose a new story, one where you're allowed to trust yourself, where your value isn't based on how much you produce, where love isn't something you chase, but something you receive with open arms. This new story begins the moment you stop trying to be who the world told you to be and start becoming who you actually are. You know what's wild? Most of what we're scared of losing was never really ours. The image, the control, the timelines, the expectations, they were borrowed ideas. And now, you get to return them. You get to be free. Free to move how you move. Free to feel deeply. Free to change your mind. Free to start over. Free to slow down without guilt. Free to rise without apology. That's what trust does. It frees you. It frees your energy. It frees your creativity. It frees your voice. So, let yourself take the pressure off. Not because you're lazy, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally growing up into someone who understands that alignment matters more than approval. You're not here to live up to someone else's definition of success. You're here to live in your truth, in your timing, with your unique rhythm. And the more you honor that, the more life opens up for you. This is where your real power begins, not in your grip, but in your release. Release the pressure to be perfect. Release the need to control every moment. Release the idea that you're behind. You're not behind. You're right on time. For your journey, not theirs. And when you walk in that truth, when you breathe from that space of deep trust, everything starts to shift. Your energy becomes calm. Your decisions become clear. Your path becomes light.